Stories, Philippines podcast.
The camera is always running, always. It is a silent, unblinking sentinel, a glassy eye that devours every gesture, every whisper, every involuntary tick of fear. Imagine a life lived under this perpetual gaze. Every late night sigh, every nervous pacing, every tear shed into a pillow, cataloged and stored forever in a digital vault. This is not just a house. It is a terrarium for the human soul, a laboratory where fame is distilled and paranoia is a predictable byproduct. Now imagine that gaze is not entirely human. Picture a moment in the dead of night when the house is draped in the heavy silence of sleeping bodies. The hundreds of infrared lenses glow like the collective eyes of a nocturnal predator, patiently watching. You are a contestant, a housemate, adrift in a sea of manufactured drama and fleeting notoriety. You turn in your bed. A sliver of moonlight catches the two-way mirror across the room. In the reflection, you see not your own tired face, nor the shapes of your sleeping competitors, but something else. Something tall, something thin. A shape with a head tilted, perpetually listening, positioned exactly where a camera operator should not be. You rationalize it. It is fatigue. It is the strange physics of the glass. It is a trick of the light from a monitor in the control room. But then you hear it, a whisper, dry as parchment, so close to your ear that you feel the phantom breath on your skin. It is not the familiar, amplified voice of the unseen entity that runs the house. It is something smaller, more personal, and deeply wounded. It tells you that the spotlight is not just on you. It is watching you, yes, but it is also inside you. It is hungry for the genuine, unscripted panic that the cameras can never truly capture. And in that moment, you realize the greatest terror of this televised sanctuary. You are not just a prisoner of the audience's attention. You are a housemate in a far older, darker domain, one whose existence began long before the television cameras started rolling. The cost of fame here is not just your privacy, it might be your peace. It might be your very self. A darkness permeates this episode, touching on scenes and themes some may find deeply unsettling. Listener carefulness is urgently requested. I am Paul, and you are listening to Stories Philippines podcast. The year was 2005. The hair across the archipelago crackled not just with the tropical humidity, but with a new and invasive cultural energy. The television landscape was shifting. Reality was the new obsession, and the concept of ordinary people becoming overnight celebrities simply by living their lives for the camera had taken hold. A massive, purpose-built house in a densely populated area became the center of this new universe. It was an enclosed space, meticulously wired and soundproofed, designed to contain and amplify the dramas of those living within. But, as with all enclosures, the question eventually arose: what else did it contain? The structure itself was modern, sleek, and wholly unnatural. It was a monument to the intrusive age, a glass fortress of celebrity where every door, every window, every corner was under the scrutiny of multiple camera lenses. This was the stage for a new form of cultural phenomenon, one that promised fame and fortune to a handful of unknowns. The promise was simple: live your life. The contract, however, was complex. The moment you walked through the doors, you relinquished control. Not just to the producers, but to the millions of eyes watching outside. This concept of being watched, this all-consuming public surveillance, is not new to the Philippines though. It has ancient roots. Consider the belief in the Batala, or the ancestors, spirits who perpetually observe the conduct of the living. Every move, every moral choice was already under an invisible scrutiny that transcended simple human judgment. What the 2005 reality show did was modernize this ancient belief. It weaponized the audience's gaze, transforming the millions of viewers into a collective, inescapable ancestor spirit. Their judgment was immediate, harsh, and had the power to exile a person back into obscurity. But it is what the eyes of the living do not see that truly concerns us. The house, for all its modern steel and glass, was built on earth that had a long memory. This specific part of the metropolis, while now a nexus of commerce and media, had once been something far different. Historical accounts from the Spanish colonial area speak of the land being part of an estate owned by a powerful family. There are whispers in the local lore of a tragedy associated with a structure that once stood on the site, a darkness involving a sudden, unexplainable isolation and a family that simply vanished. We must remember that in the Philippines, land is not inert. It absorbs the emotional resonance of the events that play out upon it. The soil beneath that modern house, sealed off by concrete and bright lights, was a repository of forgotten pain. A team of editors and technical staff working through the endless nights were the first to notice the fissures in the televised reality. These were the true unacknowledged custodians of the house's life. They saw the raw feeds, the uncensored hours of darkness and silence that the audience never witnessed. For them, the house was a labyrinth of screens, and on those screens, patterns of disturbance began to emerge. One editor, whom we shall call Anton, worked the midnight shift. His job was to monitor the sleeping hours, the dullest part of the 24-hour cycle, where the housemates were supposedly in deep, dreamless rest. Yet Anton noticed an anomaly in the footage from the hallway leading to the inner sanctuary, the small room where housemates would go to confide in the unseen entity known to all. This hallway camera, designated Cam 5, would consistently capture a distortion near the entrance to that room, always between the hours of 2 and 4 in the morning. It was not a shadow from a passing crew member. The crew had strict protocols and were never in that area during those hours. The distortion was a dark, upright shape. It did not move with the fluidity of a living person. It was static, like a long, thin smear in the visual field, always in the same spot, hovering just behind the two-way mirror of the confession room. Anton initially believed it to be a fault in the camera lens, perhaps a smear of dust. But when he cross-referenced the feed with the camera angled from the opposite end of the hallway, Cam 3, the shape was absent. It was visible from one angle but not the other, as if it existed only within a specific column of space. It was not a reflection, it was an entity that was selectively visible. This localized disturbance began to affect the equipment itself. One night, while Anton was reviewing a clip of a housemate, a young woman we will call Jane, who had gotten up to get a glass of water, the feed from her sleeping area suddenly glitched. It was a brief cascade of static, a flicker that lasted less than a second, but when the picture returned, Jane was no longer in her bed. She was standing perfectly still by the closed door to the outside, her head slightly cocked to the side, as if listening to a conversation the camera could not record. There was no sound of her footsteps, despite the sensitive floor microphones. Her movement had been eerily silent, as if she were gliding. Then, just as suddenly, the picture glitched again, a longer burst this time, and when it stabilized, Jane was back in her bed, covered up, seemingly asleep. In the morning, when the floor director casually asked her if she had slept well, she responded that her sleep had been sound, with no dreams or memories of getting up. But Anton knew what he had seen. The housemate had been awake, communicating with an unseen party, and had performed an impossible return to her resting place in the span of a broken video signal. The housemates themselves began to report strange occurrences, though these were often dismissed by the production team as the predictable side effects of isolation, lack of sleep, and the psychological pressure of constant competition. A young man, Daniel, mentioned hearing the amplified voice of the unseen entity that guided the house, but at a time when the public address system was demonstrably off. Another housemate, Maris, was so convinced that she felt a physical touch on her waist while showering that she began to take quick, nervous showers only in the full light of day. The editors, however, had their own internal folklore. It centered on a room that was strictly off-limits, marked only on the blueprints as Storage A. It was a door that housemates were never allowed to approach, a space that was never illuminated for the camera, yet it was integral to the physical structure of the house. No staff member could give a clear account of what was inside. It was a true blind spot in the hyper-documented environment. One late night, a roving technical crew was dispatched to investigate a motion alert in the hallway that led to this storage room. They found the door ajar, not fully open but cracked enough to reveal an interior that was certainly not a storage space. Inside, a soft flickering light emanated from 3 lit candles placed in a line on the concrete floor. In the center of this strange improvised altar, a white cloth was spread, and on the cloth was an old, battered stuffed toy. It looked like a child's plaything from the past, stained and missing an eye, but what froze the tech crew was the faded satin ribbon tied around the toy's neck. It was a ribbon from the merchandise of the current season. There were no housemates near the hallway. There was no sound of a key being used. The door had simply opened. The footage of this moment was immediately scrubbed from the official archives, but a few diligent staff members managed to grab screenshots. When the metadata of old floor plans was checked, an auto-generated file stamp revealed that the room was not empty when the season began. It already contained something before the housemates ever crossed the threshold. The house had a pre-existing occupant. The incident was never reported publicly. It was folded into the dark, unspoken knowledge of the production team. For them, the house was no longer just a set, it was a contested space. This idea of an invisible entity inhabiting a house is a deep part of Filipino folklore. We speak of the elementas, the unseen presences that are attached to specific places. The Nuño sa Punso, the old man of the mound, or the Kapre, the tree giant, represent a sovereignty over a specific geographical space. They resent intrusion and respond to disrespect with mischief or outright malevolence. The modern reality house, with its blatant intrusion and 24-hour noise, would be a supreme provocation to such an elemental. It is a house that is perpetually demanding attention and recognition, a direct challenge to the quiet sovereignty of the spirits. The psychological impact of being watched is profound. Studies have shown that constant surveillance can lead to a phenomenon known as institutional neurosis, a state of withdrawal, apathy, and a gradual loss of personal identity. The housemates were already under extreme duress, their personalities exaggerated, their privacy annihilated. But what if the surveillance was not just a psychological pressure, but a mechanism for something else to feed? The narrative deepened with the peculiar case of housemate number 7, a young man who had been particularly sensitive and prone to bouts of quiet anxiety. In a moment captured on an off-camera health check, he confessed to the in-house psychologist about an experience that transcended simple stress. He described a presence at the edge of his bed, a soft, almost imperceptible dip in the mattress, indicating weight. He said he would wake up to find someone sitting there, not moving, not speaking, but merely watching. What was most chilling was his identification of the presence. He claimed it spoke to him, though only in whispers, and the voice was one he knew well. It was the voice of housemate number 11, a contestant who had been evicted days earlier, having left the house in a live exit that was televised to millions. Number 7 described seeing the hands of this presence on the edge of the mattress, resting there in the dark. In his terror, he pulled his blanket completely over his head. Then, muffled by the cloth, he heard the voice whisper, "I told you I was not finished." The technical teams found their own evidence to corroborate this unsettling event. While reviewing old footage for a simple flashback sequence, one editor, Marcos, opened an archive file labeled with the time slot of 3 in the morning. On the hallway feed where the housemates were supposedly asleep, a single frame showed a skip, a jump in the timeline. The only movement was not inside the house, but in the reflection of the highly polished floor near the entrance to the confession room. A vague, elongated shadow passed slowly, moving with a noticeable slowness. Marcos replayed the sequence frame by frame and saw the impossible. The shadow paused, and its head, long and thin, bent low, looking directly into the camera lens. It was not looking at the viewer of the footage, but at the camera itself, as if aware of the very act of being recorded, as if it knew someone was watching it from the other side of the glass. The editing software crashed immediately after Marcos saw this. When it was rebooted, the file was corrupted, lost forever. But the moment of being watched had been seared into the editor's memory. The voice of the evicted housemate, number 11, became the dark leitmotif of the season. 3 other housemates following number 7's confession requested unscheduled sessions in the isolation of the room with the unseen entity. All of them, independent of one another, reported hearing a voice, a whisper, a voice that belonged to the former contestant. Housemate number 5, while washing his hands in the bathroom, heard the whisper near his ear saying clearly, "They will not get out." Housemate number 3, passing the storage area in the hall, felt a sudden coldness on the back of his neck, followed by the identical line, "They will not escape." The whispers intensified and became more specific. Housemate number 6, a quiet and reserved individual, reported hearing the voice counting. 1, it had whispered. Then it stopped. The counting was not on the speaker system. It was not on any microphone. It was a direct, localized phenomenon. In the days that followed, number 6 changed. He became withdrawn, performing a sequence of strange, repetitive acts. He would approach the refrigerator, open the door, stare inside for a long moment, and close it without taking anything. He would stand perfectly still in front of a mirror, smiling a smile that seemed too wide, too placid, devoid of genuine emotion, as if he were trying to mimic a feeling he could not recall. It was a mask of a smile, a chilling sign of dissociation. One night, the house experienced a 7-second visual glitch on the live stream. For the millions of viewers, the screen froze, overlaid with lines of static. But for those watching the raw feed, the split second before the screen blacked out contained a terrifying image. Housemate number 6 was seated outside in the garden, staring blankly at the foliage. And directly behind him, just emerging from the shadow of the plants, was a clear silhouette. The shape of the hair, the slight line of the shoulder, the posture, it belonged to housemate number 11. It was a physical body present in the house 4 days after she had been televised leaving. The timestamp on the image was 3:17 in the morning, the recurring hour of the anomaly. The fans who had captured the fleeting image on social media instantly began to speculate about the nature of the house and its hidden secrets. They asked the question the production team already knew the answer to. Why was a former housemate still in the garden? The most disturbing evidence, however, was found in the digital remnants of number 11's original audition tape. It was an unedited raw file, not meant for broadcast, that mysteriously looped on the overnight highlight reel. As the tape played, showing the young woman talking about her dreams and family, a secondary audio track began to bleed through. It was not on any known audio layer. It was a low, raspy voice, like fingernails scraped across glass. And it was chanting a single, chilling demand. "Let me in. Let me in. Let me in." As the chanting reached a crescendo, the editing software on 2 separate terminals crashed. When the system was finally restored, the audio file was gone, but the automatic transcription feature of the software had recorded one final line spoken by the unknown voice, just as the young woman on the tape completed her final sentence. It read, "It is happier inside." The fate of housemate number 2 offered the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. On one afternoon, the system logged a spontaneous, unscheduled confession room access granted. No buzzer sounded, no call was made from the control booth, but the door opened and number 2 walked in, silently without a word and without looking at the cameras. The door closed and the monitor for Cam 12, which focused on the room, went black. A technician was dispatched to check the room physically. He reported back that the door was closed, latched, and showed no sign of having been opened. And housemate number 2 was gone from the house. No one had seen him leave. No camera had captured his exit. A search was quickly mounted, but no one could find the missing housemate. Then, a discovery was made on 2 separate camera feeds at the exact same time. Housemate number 2 was visible on cam 7, standing in the kitchen, motionless, staring at the camera. At the same moment, housemate number 2 was visible on cam 4, sitting quietly in the garden, tapping his knee with an anxious rhythm. 2 identical individuals in the same clothing, in 2 separate locations simultaneously. The one in the kitchen was utterly still. Upon close examination, the editor noticed that the chest of the kitchen twin did not rise or fall with breath, and its eyes remained perfectly dilated, unblinking. The twin in the garden, however, was anxious, and later rose and walked into the bedroom. The kitchen twin simply stared at the lens, his face impassive. Then, slowly, unnervingly, he smiled. It was the same wide, empty smile seen on housemate number 6, a perfect, inhuman replication of joy. The feeds eventually merged again. The garden twin was confirmed as the original housemate, but the question remained, who or what had been standing in the kitchen? And where had the original housemate number 2 gone when the confession room door inexplicably opened? The final digital anomaly came in the form of a hidden feed, a channel that had no icon or label on the control interface, but which suddenly appeared during a server refresh. It was labeled Room Zero Live. The video was a single static shot of a small bare concrete room. In the center, an empty wooden chair slowly rotated. As the image continued, a shape began to coalesce upon the chair, starting as a wisp of smoke, gradually taking the form of a thin, pale man wearing a blood-stained white shirt, similar to the one worn by number 11 in her audition tape. He was not sitting on the chair so much as being dragged into it. As the figure solidified, a sound, a faint collective weeping of many voices, bled into the audio feed, and on the concrete wall behind the chair, letters written in what appeared to be dark fluid began to glow, written in reverse. Digitally flipping the image revealed a final, terrible message. Only one will get out. The feed instantly went black. The file was purged from the system. But the automatic system log kept the final haunting detail. A note, not placed by a human, appeared on the master list beneath the file name for the vanished video. It read, Room Zero feed activated by internal query, housemate number 6. The house, with its 1,000 eyes, had turned its gaze inward, and the inmates were not the only ones being watched. This modern tale is merely a new chapter in a very old Filipino story. The belief that a single place can demand a soul for its continued existence is not confined to the haunted colonial mansions or the deep forests. It has been digitized, broadcast, and made a perverse form of entertainment. The modern obsession with fame, the willingness of individuals to sacrifice their privacy for fleeting attention, seems to have unlocked a door for something ancient. What if the house, in its perpetual state of being watched, had become a perfect echo chamber for something that craved exactly that? What if the collective, 24-hour gaze of the audience had given the resident elemental of the land the energy it needed to manifest? And what if the price of being a housemate was not just a temporary loss of your identity, but the permanent acquisition of a shadow self that refused to be evicted? The cameras are still running in that house, recording the manufactured drama and the genuine anxiety. But the question remains, are the housemates watching the cameras, or are the cameras now watching the entity that has found a permanent, self-replenishing home on the set? The audience thinks they are watching a competition for fame, but perhaps they are merely witnessing a perpetual, digitalized sacrifice. Remember to submit your stories to our email, storiesphpodcast@gmail.com. Find show notes and support options in the description. Access exclusive content on Patreon, and follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. What is the true cost of celebrity when the spotlight is shared with the unquiet dead? Fame is a powerful intoxicant, but reality is a slow, insidious poison. Join us next time for more unsettling tales from the islands, or explore our back catalog of episodes wherever you find podcasts. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Support the show in any way you can. Details are in the show notes below. But before you go, take a moment. Turn off the lights. Let the silence of your room settle in. Because sometimes, silence has a way of listening back. Each download, each play, each whisper through your headphones, it keeps the stories alive. It reminds the shadows that they are being remembered, and in the strange economy of fear and fascination, that is how old tales survive, through the eyes and ears of those who dare to listen. So thank you for being one of them, for stepping into the dark with us, one story at a time. I'm Paul, and this has been Stories Philippines Podcast. Until next time, keep your lights low and your eyes open, because you never really know who's watching or what's watching back.